And then also, I will also record. Um, like I haven't started the recording yet, but make sure I do it. Like that's gonna be really clutch. I will get murdered if it doesn't happen. So,
Okay.
um, all right, this Zoom is happening. I'm going to copy it and send it to folks on Eventbrite. How's school?
School's good. Almost done. I mean, I'm pretty tired of it, but you know, it's my last semester, so I'm glad.
And what program are you in?
Urban planning.
Oh, okay, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
And you're getting your graduate degree in urban planning, right?
Yeah, my graduate degree. So yeah, I might go back, get my doctorate. I don't know yet.
Also, I'm just working on this email to the attendees. So like, if you see people in the waiting room, just let me know and I'll handle it.
Okay.
Um, Greetings, everyone. Hmm. Okay. Okay. Do. And I go on live screen, and then let's see participants, invite, and then let me see. Fuck me. Fuck. Okay. Um. Got it. All right. So. All right, now we wait. Yeah, and I guess once you begin, I'll just turn off my camera. But well, we'll keep it on speaker view.
Okay.
Hmm. Okay, let's see. I will go into Zoom. Okay, something is happening because we had more than 200 RSVPs. Um, and there must be blocking people from getting in.
They someone just asked me for the passcode. I'm not sure if people have the passcode.
I emailed the passcode. So I can send another email for the passcode. Do you want the passcode for this person? Let me see. Invite. So the passcode is 417864.
Okay.
Yeah. And I just sent it to everyone. I'm wondering what's happening. All right. So now we have people. I guess they're coming in. Oh wow. All right. There's 4 in the room. So I'll start admitting people. What's the name of your friend?
No, it was someone on Twitter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're gonna admit them. Greetings, everyone. As per usual with Zoom events, we have a brief technical difficulty that we're working through, but we're letting people populate the room, and we'll get started pretty soon. Thinking 6:15.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Da, 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 da. Okay. In the meantime, I'm going to play some music.
Okay.
Okay. Yes. Thank you. I will do that again. Did you not? Did you not get it through event? Right.
Hold on.
So now. Okay, so it looks like we have around 50 people now, so we can get started. Um, um,
Okay.
all right, so I'm just gonna begin talking and um, let's see. So stop share, allow people to see my face. I'm gonna put it on spotlight for the moment. Um, Greetings, everyone. First, could you give me a thumbs up or type in the chat if you can hear me? Thank you, Lauren. Aisha, thank Goins, Ms. Davis. So great, everyone can hear me. Wonderful. So hi, my name is Obden Munderzier. I am the oral history manager at the Weeksville Heritage Center. And we're really excited to have this workshop on social media and archival digging with Sola. His full name is, sorry, something happened with my screen. But, and I should start recording. But with Sola Olosunde. And the Legacy Project, first, the Weeksville Heritage Center is a historic house museum that is in central Brooklyn and preserves the remaining 3 houses that were part of a free Black community that existed in the 19th century. And we preserve that memory through historic preservation, our archives, our collections, as well as the programming that we do. And a part of that, we have the Legacy Project, and the Legacy Project is a Mellon-funded project that we've been doing for the last 3 years, in which our 5th of July Resource Center has been used as a hub to do public programming, have an internship based on diversity, and the third thing is public training workshops, which that's what we're doing right now. And we thought it would be wonderful to invite Solo Olusunde to talk about the methods that he uses in bringing our archival media and curating that through social media. So, in a few minutes, I'll let him take it away and do the workshop. And the way it'll work, since we started at 6:20, we'll stop at around 7:15. And at 7:15, we'll go into Q&A, which I will help curate through the chat. And I think that's it for now. And then I'm gonna stop speaking. I'm gonna let Solo do his thing and take over the screen. And you'll see me at the end for the Q&A, as well as some more information in regards to future programming that we're having at Weeksville. All right, thank you. So Solo, the spotlight's on you. Go ahead.
Okay. So can everyone hear me? All right. Hi, my name is Sola. I am a graduate student at Hunter College. I study urban planning, but my background, I graduated with a degree in history and political science from Queens College. And yeah, I am going to share my screen. Hold on. All right. So basically what I'm going to do is walk you guys through the research process that I do, pretty much how I gather information. I always say that it's not hard. It's a lot of the stuff that I take from is free. Anybody that has internet access can do this. And I always say that a history degree is pretty much going to the library a lot. So if you go to the library a lot and you read a whole lot of history books, you can be able to know a good amount of things. If you just do research, and it's not hard. Hold on. Yeah, my introduction, like I said, I'm a graduate student at Hunter College. I'm born and raised in New York City. I'm from Brooklyn. I live in Far Rockaway now. how I got started on everything. Pretty much, I've always been into history since I was a little kid. I've always liked social studies. Pretty much learning from my dad his stories about New York, him reminiscing a lot about his first years in New York when he came here in the 80s. He came here in 1986 and pretty much lived in the same neighborhood. We grew up in Clintonville. So as I got older, I started to become really interested in it, and I thought I might as well study it in school. I was tutoring in high school, and I thought it was just a natural transition. Um, and I ended up getting really into it, and I was frustrated with the fact that I was learning all these things, and um, no one else outside of my school would be able to really learn any of this stuff. Um, So I tried to find a way to get people more into history. A lot of people would give me pretty negative reactions when I would tell them that I would study history. I mean, I was studying history, um, and I just didn't understand why. Because at the end of the day, people like stories, and history is pretty much a series of stories. So um, I started on social media putting out information that more and more people would be interested in, really like my immediate friends and friends of friends, doing a lot of local things because I know people always want to know about where they're from and uh, just their environment. So I would just, you know, put out fun facts or like put out videos, photos about things. At first, I was using articles, but I felt like not too many people were paying attention to articles, so then I moved to photos and videos, and that kind of gained a lot of attention, and here we are. Um, as far as getting started on research, you have to ask yourself a few questions. What exactly do you want to research? Is it a person? Is it an event in particular, like an event from a certain era? Is it a group of people from a specific place, say like Black people from Philadelphia? Or is it, say, a place during a certain era, like 1920s Harlem? And it's best you get, I guess, as specific as possible to really understand like to really remain focused on what you want to learn about. Um, and you should also ask yourself what larger trends surround what you want to research. In terms of like, say, early 20th century Harlem, there's, the Great Migration, urban growth, immigration, um, like the free black communities post slavery. So you have to wonder what pretty much what trends will be affecting uh, this thing you want to research, because it will provide context to the research and it helps you gain a better understanding of whatever you want to do. You may end up going off on a whole nother tangent and finding, I guess, a whole different set of pieces to the puzzle that uh, you wouldn't really find out if you weren't thinking about everything in a larger context. Like, for example, if you want to talk about Harlem, immigration was going on around that time, but a lot of the immigrants who were highlighted back in those days were mostly from Eastern and Southern Europe, like Russians, um, Polish people, um, and no one really talks about, say, West Indian immigration during that time, because there were a lot of Cubans that were coming to New York and living in New York, a lot of West Indians in general um, coming to New York, and a lot of people don't know that. Uh, you should also ask yourself if there are any stories or people closely related to whatever you want to research. because there might be parallels. Same thing, earlier 20th century Harlem. It's pretty much the same thing going on all over the country. Um, Black communities are growing in the urban north, in Philadelphia, in places like Baltimore, Chicago, Detroit. The post-slavery debate, which is what are Black people going to do after slavery, after Reconstruction. That's where you get like the Talented Tenth, W.E.B. Du Bois, Booker T. Washington, people like that. And urban industrialization. You can talk about where did Black people end up in this this hierarchy of industrialization, and they mostly ended up being like strike breakers. Um, and what perspectives do you want to hear? So, in terms of that same subject of Harlem, do you want to hear the people on the street? Do you want to hear their experiences? Do you want to hear important members of the community, what they see, what vision do they have for the community, how they interact with the community, how they see things going on, because they may know the inner workings of things that people on the street may not know, or a detached academic who may not have experienced anything but is just closely studying the subject and has extensively researched the subject. As far as literary sources go, books are very important. Books and journals are very important. I feel like people see videos and don't realize that a lot of the knowledge that comes from finding those videos comes from books. And a lot of people don't really, you know, consider it a place of people do consider it a place of research, but I feel like nowadays people don't necessarily think, oh yeah, books will lead me to uncovering a whole different set of things like videos or media sources in general. Um, yeah, so say college libraries. I'm using my school site. Uh, you can go, you know, on databases, which are like um, pretty much a huge set of information. I'm trying to find something I can open, but there's a whole bunch you can look through. Um, if you're in school, you can go on your school library website and pretty much find a whole bunch of information concerning, I guess, history, like psych, poli sci, things of that nature. Film and media studies. Like the filmmakers library. Is one example of a pretty much a database that has videos ranging from like present day till from to about the 1930s. I sometimes come on here for research, but it's not easy to get rip content off of the site. But yeah, college libraries are a good way to access things. Public library databases like the New York Public Library has a whole bunch of databases that you can access. And if you have a library card, you can access everything. Like here's a newspaper database. that I look through pretty often. But this is, say, I want to look up Nigeria, African newspapers. So pretty much they'll give you um, a pretty broad amount of articles to search from. But I mean, you can still classify. I mean, you can pretty much look through, publication location or language, decade, year, and specify whatever you're looking for. I'm gonna go more into this later. As far as journal articles are a good source of info. They're perfect for pandemic research because it's accessible online. Most of them are accessible. You can, use JSTOR. JSTOR is like pretty much an academic journal site. I use this a lot, especially for school. Um, you do need institutional access to log in. I'm not sure about the special access during COVID, but they probably have given people access to view their articles, but you can still use Sci-Hub. Sci-Hub is basically a site where you can type in any URL to a journal article, and pretty much they'll break the paywall, and you can read the journal article. And also ethnographies, oral histories, interviews are important when you think about books. I really like ethnographies. I think ethnographies are very interesting. They're basically a profile of a specific group of people, like a very, very specific group of people. Like I have a book, hold on. Like I have this book, it's called Running Down Some Lines. It's a book from the 1960s, I think 1967. A graduate student basically wrote about young Black kids in LA and how they speak. So it's basically a book about language. Yeah, so it's pretty much what they say, their slang, and what it means, what their life is about, as far as romance, violence, drugs, things of that nature. Oral histories, I mean, there's a lot of oral history projects you can choose from. One that is interesting to me is they're the FHA, not the FHA. I know it was a government program during the New Deal. They basically decided to gather the stories of ex-slaves, the last ex-slaves during the 1930s. So they were pretty old, but there's even recordings online. If you Google it, you'll be able to find it. But yeah, but when looking at literary sources, you should always check the citations. I always say to check the citations because there is so much that you can learn from a citation. Like if you see an interesting sentence, you should definitely look at where it's from and look at the information, especially because if you're reading, say, a journal article, this information is pretty much filtered and it's paraphrased by someone, whoever wrote the article. But if you go and check the citation and go to see, say, I don't know, it's a New York Times article from 1925, you'll be able to decide for yourself what was going on at the time. It's pretty much like the author is going back and translating whatever they're doing research on to you. And you can just go look back at the research and figure out for yourself whatever you want to think, because it's not as if this historian or whoever is writing this, they're approaching this with biases for the most part. So you should always check citations and read primary sources. Google is your best friend. I'd say Google everything, because like if you don't know something, I always feel like Google always has the answer. Even if I'm on Google for an hour, I always find the answer. So yeah, the closer to the ever, the better. This is the same thing with primary sources. Say when I think about Black New York, I always try to find really, really old books. Say like a 1930s book about Black New York, which is like Black Manhattan by James Weldon Johnson. That's a book about Manhattan, Black people in Manhattan from the 1600s to the 1930s. And pretty much I'd rather read a book like that instead of a book that was written in the 2000s about the growth of Harlem. Like one of my favorite books about Harlem, about Black New York, is Before Harlem by who is it? I think it's Marion Sims. Um, that book is really good. It's very digestible. It's very easy to read. Um, and but at the end of the day, I'd still rather read a book that is from an earlier era, because there's always information that ends up being lost and no one really looks looks at it. I really suggest, if you're interested in Black New York, I really suggest you read Black Manhattan. But yeah, like I said, always research the author of the text. You have to understand their viewpoints, and because at the end of the day, people are always explaining things from a point of bias, and you may end up interpreting historical events in a whole different way. Um, as far as newspaper and magazine sources, I really love newspaper sources because you can really get a snapshot of an era um, through a whole bunch of things. They have classified ads. If you look through the classifieds, you may figure out where certain people lived. I always look through classified ads in like Black newspapers to figure out where people were living, because if there is a rent ad in a colored newspaper, obviously they're going to be renting to Black people. So day-to-day articles, I like reading, like say gossip columns, things like that. I remember reading, there's a newspaper called the New York Freeman, and basically there would be stories of people and like on the street in New York, and they remember each other from the South. Like they became free and they would come to up north and they would end up seeing someone that they knew from down south. And I always thought that was pretty really interesting. And you'll also find out very particular things about different eras. Like back in the day, they used to put people's addresses in newspapers. So like if you did a crime, it would say like, I don't know, it would say like John Smith, 235 Halsey Street. It would literally say where you lived. Yeah, and even opinions. Like I said, people had different biases, so they may interpret events differently. People like say someone who is well off, well to do, and they're writing opinions in a colored newspaper, they may have a different set of opinions rather than say someone who is more on the lower class, working class side. So yeah. Also, you can still go on library databases and like I use newspapers.com because very it's very easy to use. Um, I can go through something. Like I use this for the New York Age, which is a black newspaper from the early to mid 1900s. Um, I can type in, say, Bedford Stuyvesant. All right. So this is just a bunch of, entries. There's not much going on in 1905, obviously, because Brooklyn has not really been too developed yet. You have to go further down to the 1930s, 1935. Um, okay. Let me see some. I want to see ads. I can't see any ads. But all right. So sometimes I'd even just look at random articles with certain names. Um, what is this about? This is about YMCA, YWCA members. Okay, so like basically, um, yeah, pretty much you can look through different editions of the paper. Um, I'm trying to find an actual ad so I can show you guys what I'm talking about. Hmm. All right, so like this is a good example of a rent ad in in the paper. What is this, 1938? Um, Pretty much in one newspaper. It's like if you look through weeks and weeks of newspapers in the 1930s in New York Age, you'll see a lot of um, rent ads in Bedford Stuyvesant. Um, and then as time goes on through, till the late, I guess, to the early 40s, then you'll start seeing actual articles about Bed-Stuy and what was going on. But yeah, another. As far as newspapers on the New York Public Library website, they use ReadX, which is somewhat tricky to use, but they have a lot of newspapers. Let's say the New York Globe. But yeah, let me move on though. All right, but magazines also is another good source to get things from. I feel like it's a good multimedia source. It's a photo and print source. A lot of big publications have a lot of archives online. Google Books has a bunch. A good example is Ebony. They have Life magazine as well. I think Jet magazine has theirs online. And I can show you guys how to like rip something if you guys want to, like take the page out. May 1960. Okay. So, nation's best dressed women. Okay. So with this page, I don't know if you guys have Chrome, but you can press inspect. Look through the sources, books. And these are pretty much like, I guess, 10 pages in between what I've just chosen. This is like the earlier page, so I would have to go a little further down. But yeah, the further down you go, you can get a roll of about 10 images. And then you just open the image in a new tab, and this is the image. So you can basically take it off the site. You don't have to worry about constantly trying to go back and forth to the site.
Yeah. Solo, I'm just gonna ask one question really quickly. What was the name of the newspaper site?
Newspapers.com, and the library databases. It's the New York Public Library website. So
Thank
it's just the databases, huh? Yeah, and you just look through the site, through the search panel and choose historical newspapers. Yeah, online databases, same thing. Magazines, look through magazines. They have Jet magazine, Ebony magazine, Esquire, more, like LGBT Q magazines, Life magazine, like I said, New York magazine. Yeah. Photograph sources might be kind of hard to get. Not necessarily. They're actually easy. only if you know photographers, you would have to know the names of photographers. That helps a lot because then you'll know like their journey. If you understand their career, um, you'll just be able to say, hey, oh, this guy photographed this, he documented this. Um, Obviously, photographs are harder to find the further back you go, but luckily, as opposed to videos, photos have been taken from pretty much the vast majority of the 20th century. So you can always find photos of things. Um, and some places might be more documented than others. I research a lot in New York, and New York is like a dream for photographers, I guess. So a lot of photographers ended up coming here, um, and ended up staying here. Like they would come from a lot of random places, especially a lot of Black photographers, and would just end up living here for like 50 years or something. But yeah, knowledge of photographers' names help. Personal photos help a lot, if you can get them. They're not easy to get, especially if you don't know anyone that lived during that time. But yeah, you can look on the Library of Congress site. That's pretty. It's pretty general. It's very broad. You can get a lot from here. Search Brooklyn. I don't know. And yeah, you'll end up seeing a lot of different things. But if you see, say, people, I like photos of people. So, and the guy that made this, Camilo Vergara, he's also a New York photographer. And he has a whole bunch of New York photos. So that's why I'm saying it's very important for you to know the photographer's name because you'll understand where they took pictures. And yeah, ICP site, a lot of museum sites you can go on and you'll find a lot of things. And ICP is basically a photography center. It's a museum. They have a museum in Manhattan, in Lower Manhattan. Say I wanted to look up a photographer's name, Benny Joseph. He took a lot of photos in Houston in the 1950s. Yeah, pretty much a wide array of photos on ICP. I like ICP a lot, actually. Like the MoMA, same thing. Let me close these tabs. And I can look up, I don't know, like Gordon Parks. You'll see a lot of things from Gordon Parks. And with his name, you will find a bunch of 75 works online. So you'll find a whole bunch of photos. A lot of his photos are in color because he used to be a photographer for Life magazine. So he was able to shoot in color film. But yeah. And then say I wanted to, you know, Harlem Gang Wars, and he was a photographer for Life magazine. So basically, what you would do is you can go to say a database, Google Books, Life magazine. So if you go look up, say, 1948 Gordon Parks, Life magazine. Uh, I don't want to waste too much time, but a good example would be like a Harlem family. Can we see it? No. But through the New York Public Library website, you'll be able to end up at the full archive of Life magazine. And then you'll be able to find, if you find the date that that photo was published, you'll be able to find the full article. I posted the article before on Twitter, but yeah. Yeah, as for videos, even videos are even more tricky, but I really like, and I like love finding them. They take a really long time to find, and they're not easy to get from the internet. You might need institutional access, and I don't know how to get around that. There's no like real Sci-Hub thing for that. You would have to be just really good at knowing how to rip things. As far as databases go, I like Alexander Street, and that's the one that I was on before. Um, uh, but I really want to say that books do help with video research. A good example of books helping was the Rosedale clip that I found. Um, I was basically reading a lot about uh, Black people moving into parts of cities where it was very residential. Like Canarsie, there's a book about Canarsie by Jonathan Reeder. He used to teach at Brooklyn College. And it's basically almost like an ethnographical book about the uh, the white residents that were living in Canarsie and reacting to the change that was going on. If you know anything about Canarsie now, it's a very West Indian neighborhood. And Rosedale came to mind, and that's also another neighborhood that's uh, very black, very West Indian. And I ended up coming across this documentary just by going on YouTube and searching Rosedale 1970s. So yeah. The Internet Archive I really like, that is pretty much a multimedia source where anybody can upload anything and you can get a whole bunch of things. You can look up sometimes that's the thing. That's the annoying thing. Sometimes you have to put African American 19. Matter of fact, you could put, if you want to look up, that's the thing about searching things. You wouldn't necessarily write black if you would want to search up things from the 1950s because they weren't using that word yet. So you would have to search up Negro or colored. And you would look up movies. Change the year. There isn't much. But yeah, then you'll find things. Teddy. These are like very old. Black Shadows on a Silver Screen. That's like a documentary about the history of Black cinema. I think up to about 1970 something. Teddy was just a profile about a Black kid in Los Angeles. I've watched a bunch of these. So, the American Archive of Public Broadcasting. This is a great source of media. It is solely video. It's videos and audio, but I use it pretty much for video. Like I said, it's good to learn the names of local TV channels and documentary series in order for you to be able to search through this and get a good amount of output for your research. Say WNET, that's for New York, KQED, that's San Francisco, WGBH is Boston. So say you type in WNET, just WNET. So you'll find a bunch of things. From anything that NET produced from, I guess, the 50s, they started using television. So by oldest. But yeah, these are all just a bunch of, see now they're showing WGBH, which is, like I said, they take things out of Boston. It's a lot of produced from these very local television stations. So if you look up the television station, and you'll end up finding a good amount of sources. With WNET, I've ended up finding out about Black Journal. Black Journal is a show made by WNET in from 1968 till about 74. Broadcast out of New York, and it was basically like a current events for like the Black community back then. It's really good. I think everyone should check this out on the American Archive. I'm trying to find, because I want you guys to see how much they have every episode on here, I think. Okay, yeah, so Black Journal, these are all the episodes. Pretty much, yeah, it's a lot. I don't know what else to say. You should look it up and definitely go through everything. But yeah, or even like Frontline on the American Archive, Frontline PBS. That's like, I don't know if they still run Frontline, but it's a documentary series on PBS. PBS made a lot of very informative documentaries. Yeah, so like, it's a lot of Frontline documentaries. And if you just go through the years, you can go back as far as about it's from the 80s. But the Paley Center for Media is it's really extensive. It's like thousands of entries of TV programs and just specials in general. So if you search up Brooklyn, you'll find like historical reels, but you can't find the links to the videos on these sites. On this site, you will only find the title and the description. So I usually go on this site to look up things, and if I read the description of a documentary and it sounds cool, I'm gonna go ahead and look it up. And if I can't find it, I can't find it. It might take hours to find, but I'll just try to find it. Um, but yeah, and holistic approaches, basically, just I think people need to just embrace more, just be outside more. I think being outside helps a lot in terms of research, especially when it comes to history. Asking older folks helps. Always ask older people, people like who experienced it, because their perspective means a lot. Um, there's a lot of things that you may just not learn about from a book or from a newspaper clip or from a documentary. Like you just won't. So I do strongly suggest asking older people about what they went through during certain eras. Um, they can basically tell you how they experienced everything, and you'll be able to. When you start to talk to someone who's older about, say, I don't know, like the 80s or um, like the 60s, it's just different. You get it's a lot more passionate. I feel like you should tour the area you want to research, because you might see like relics of older times. Like in Brownsville, if you ride around Brownsville, say you ride down Pitkin, you would see a lot of like buildings that still have like engravings that are like related to Judaism, like the Star of David on some buildings. And I mean, Brownsville was very Jewish before it became mostly black. So yeah, you'll be able to notice those things. Like it's just certain things. Like in Clinton Hill, there's like a Masonic temple, and you'll just like, I feel like if you just notice these things, you'll start to ask yourself questions, and you might be able to learn even more about your neighborhood or wherever you want to learn about. And you should think outside the box as far as what can provide a snapshot of an era. Like I collect yearbooks, so I have a lot of high school and college yearbooks because I think they just provide a snapshot of an era. Like I think certain books that I have books from like the 1940s of junior high school students, quite a few in Brooklyn, and it was very like integrated. Like you would, if you see the class photos, they were very. I can show you guys, but this is junior high school 135. I don't even know if you guys could see it, but yeah, this is a 1946 junior high school class. This class, I'd say, is mostly black. There's about few. I don't know if you guys could see it. It's probably like black and a few white people in this class. But I'd say that to say that most, like by the 30s and 40s, places like Brownsville and Bedford Stuyvesant were pretty integrated. It wasn't until about the 60s that it became as segregated as it was. And yeah, I wouldn't like read. I read that in books before, but I've never really like to see the actual photos of kids in class together is just different to me. Pamphlets, TV shows help a lot. The way people talk is very interesting to me, and I feel like watching old TV shows and old just news specials. I there was like I feel like there were people back in the day that used to talk in certain ways. Um, People used to talk in this very like people called it a mid-Atlantic accent, but it was like this way of talking that people wanted to sound British, but they really weren't British. If you look up this guy William Buckley, he talks in that way, and I've always thought that was pretty interesting. Yeah, pamphlets like the AIDS epidemic is a perfect example of using pamphlets because I feel like pamphlets were a way of getting the word out about the virus and about how it can be spread and safe sex, this, that, and the third. You'll be able to gain a lot of that sense of urgency and what they were trying to do, like what they were doing concerning that, or like even a whole nother side, say, I don't know, people who were just, I mean, AIDS was a very, people were scared. It was a lot of things that were going on. So there was always like violent propaganda. So yeah, it's a very good way of seeing how people promoted their views. Final thoughts. I do want to say that research is very tedious and you have to be very patient. It gets very boring if you're not into it, but I like doing it, so I'm pretty I can look for something for literally hours and I'll be on the computer for hours looking for something. And if I don't find anything, I don't care because I'll probably find something else that's cool. You should get creative when searching. Present day terms weren't always popular, like I said. As far as like the word black, if you want to search things, you shouldn't use that word. If you're going past like before the 60s, you should use like say Negro, and if you're going before that, you should be using colored. Like that's just what it is. Again, like I said, read citations. I think that's the most important thing. If you're going to do anything, you should read the citations. The earlier the text, the better, because you'll gain a better sense of past eras. So always look up primary sources, especially when it comes to books, and always research the author because people have their views and they're going to shape things in the way they want to. So always research who is talking about this because they may use, like a good example is a book that I have called Half a Man by Mary White Overton, which is a book that is a sociological study from, I think, 1905, I want to say, about Black people in New York. And I mean, it's cool, but it's not necessarily, it's like still written by a white woman in 1905. So there's still going to be some type of biases there, Or if you read, say, W.E.B. Du Bois, who did a lot of sociological studies on Black people at the turn of the century, he still has his views, concerning the talented Ted and things like that. Like what Black people should be doing. They should be going to college and things of that nature. So yeah, research the author, and yeah, that's it.
Sola, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge on your how-to of doing this work of retrieving material from the internet and making it accessible and curating it. And I'm just really excited to get into the Q&A because there are a lot of really good questions. So I'm going to do that. Let me share. Nope, that's fine. So one of the first questions that we have is, I'm an immigrant from the Bronx and have been working in education for a while. Now in Brooklyn. This year, I proposed a co-curricular working through interdisciplinary art. A huge part of my creative work is archives. Do you have any suggestions or activities or prompts as far as getting high school students to explore this subject?
To explore the subject, I think when it comes to high school, I think definitely keep it very localized. I think everyone likes to learn about their surroundings. It does, like, no matter the age, they just want to know about what happened before them, and definitely use videos, because I do feel like videos are a very eye-opening thing, and I do think that letting them know that it's accessible. Like, there's a lot of stuff on YouTube. Like, if you message me somewhere, I can give you like YouTube channels to look up, depending on the era that you want to look up. But yeah, if you let them know that, oh yeah, you can look this up on YouTube, like you can watch whole documentaries on YouTube, I think that will definitely help, especially if it's something that they're interested in, like their neighborhood, or whatever they're into. Like, people always ask questions as like that, like questions like, how did this happen, like why is this way? And especially as a teenager, I think teenagers always have that question,
All right,
especially when it
thanks.
comes to their surroundings.
And then the next question that we have is, how do you? I mean, you may have gone over this like briefly, but how do you research well-known photographers?
How do I research them? um I mean, you mean well known or lesser known?
Well-known.
Well known, I mean, that's pretty easy. Like a Google search, like I said, Google, I haven't emphasized this a lot, but Google is like your best friend. I think Google will lend you so many photos, especially when it comes to well-known people like Gordon Parks. Like, that's probably the most known Black photographer. So yeah, if you search up Gordon Parks' name on Google, you'll find a lot.
Okay. Um, Another question that's here is, if I cannot find a specific newspaper from a specific time period on newspapers.com, where else should I look? So, like, other suggestions for
Mm-hmm.
newspaper archives.
Um, Local library archives. I mean, I use like New York. I use the New York Public Library that has a bunch. Um, the Brooklyn Public Library has a few. They have like the Brooklyn Daily Eagle.
They do.
Um, and I feel like other libraries would have that, and college uh, databases, if you have access, because I know not everyone has access, but yeah.
Yeah, and Amber Certain, who has been like a boon of information in the chats, has also suggested state and local historical societies.
Yeah,
Um,
historical societies, definitely.
mhm.
Like Brooklyn Historical Society has a bunch of things.
All right. So another question that we have here is, what are some digital tools or software that you use to download info from these sites or to rip them?
To rip them, um, like I said, I use sci-hub.sc, which is for the literary sources. For video sources, the Internet Archive, you can download a lot of those videos. Some of them are stream only. I really suggest the Internet Archive because there's so much videos if you just know how to search for it. But yeah, YouTube is I pretty much just use some website on the internet. What is it? ytmp3.cc, I think. That's
YT.
ytmp3.cc. That's like, you can convert a YouTube video to an MP3 or MP4.
Okay.
So you can just download any YouTube video. the American Archive pretty much has all their videos are downloadable. And if not, I can use an add-on for Chrome. So if you look up video downloader for Google Chrome, you'll be able to get a downloader. Yeah.
The first one you said was Sci-Hub.
Yeah, Sci-Hub.
Which is in his presentation, and you're okay with sharing your PowerPoint through email after this, right? Yeah. So basically, a lot of the sources that he's discussed will be shared in the email that I will send at 8 in the evening. But that's Sci-Hub. And then a fun question that someone asked is, what are some of the historical podcasts that you enjoy listening to, if you listen to them?
I don't listen to podcasts.
Let me see. Let's see if there are any other questions. There was one about pamphlets. So where do you find yearbooks and pamphlets?
Yearbooks and pamphlets. I go on eBay. I have like 30 yearbooks, and I bought them all on eBay. So,
oh wow,
pamphlets. Okay. Yeah, like I could show you guys one, but yeah, pamphlets you can get. There's online databases. Like if you look up, like legit on the library databases, you can find like pamphlet databases. So yeah, they'll have like Ephemera, things like that.
Ephemera, yeah. Also, yeah, some things that are mentioned in the chat. Oh, here's a good one from the Free Black Women's Library. What's the most interesting thing you have ever seen in your research?
The most interesting?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, yeah, the growth of Harlem. I was talking about that a lot in my presentation because I really think that's interesting. How Black people just came together and said, like, it was pretty much of a choice. Like when people ended up moving to Harlem, it was like seen as a big thing, and there was a lot of it was a big effort. It was like a multi-class effort of people coming to Harlem, like from real estate to everything. I feel like real estate in Harlem back in those days it was very interesting. Yeah, especially if you read the newspapers about the migration, that's probably the most interesting. Like Philip Payton, there's this guy who was like a real estate tycoon and he was Black, and he basically like since like Black people weren't necessarily allowed to live in certain buildings in Harlem, like he basically would buy buildings and then kick the white tenants out and rent them to colored tenants. And I always thought that was just very interesting for 1905. Like that was just something that was like, you know, it was, I just never thought that would ever happen. When I first read it, it took me by surprise. That was.
And wait, what's the name of this person that was kicking out white tenants?
Philip Payton, Philip A. Payton.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's a really great tidbit, and thanks for answering that question. We have about 2 minutes left, and you know, if folks want to, if folks want to, like, I'll just look at some more questions and close up. But let me see. Someone asks, is that can you use the same sources for international research?
Yeah. I know, yeah, pretty much everything that I've named. Yeah, there's databases at the New York Public Library that have that are like international, like African newspapers and things like that.
What sources would you look into if you wanted to research immigration?
Immigration. It depends on what type of what you want to know about immigration. I mean,
Oh, what
like
sources?
because I mean, you can use the same resources that I used. I've looked up, say, immigration, um, like immigration to New York, like West Indian immigration is one that I've looked up a lot, and I've used like newspaper articles, that talk about um, Black immigration. As far as videos go, you might be able to find like documentaries, but you got to look up names and things like that.
Okay. And I think
But
we'll go ahead.
I was gonna say I'm looking at the chat now. African immigration. I mean, I've seen some things, but African immigration is like somewhat new. Like it's not as like old and multi generational as say West Indians. Like people are third generation West Indian. People are like fifth generation Puerto Rican. So you can look up that. But most of Africans here are first generation, maybe second. Like I'm surprised if I hear someone like my age and they're saying, "Oh, like my mother was born here, but she's from Nigeria." It's usually your parents immigrated here.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah, great. And I think because it's 7:30, I'll just speak for a little bit on further programming. And in the link, or I'm sharing a link to the Eventbrite for future events that we're having through the public workshop series. And I'm going to share this slide. Yay, I got to it. So in the link I just shared, we have our next workshop will be on November 25th, the day before Thanksgiving. The idea was that considering that we're in a time where we can't really spend time with our loved ones, I think we cut 8 people from my family's list of who we're going to eat with. We wanted to do a genealogy workshop, a genealogy 101 workshop with Jermaine Dennis. He is a Queens College alum and a person that I always enjoy hearing speak. And he'll be giving a workshop on how people of color can overcome the barrier in regards to doing genealogical research on their family. So please come in and sign up for that. That is next week, Wednesday at the same time, 6 o'clock. And then the other things I wanted to share is that we will also have um, a genealogy workshop with Dr. Doris Withers for those who are interested in getting their DNA tested and like all of the questions and concerns that come with that. And then the third thing we have is digital research methods with Dr. Robin Naughton of Queens College. She will show you how to, one, um, access open source databases to do the research that you want, to overcome some of the barriers that Sola mentioned, but also how to organize your work in a way that it all makes sense so that you can have a finished product, but like um, just get an entire process from beginning to end in regards to the digital research that you want to do, and then also how to exhibit that work outside of something like on a website like Omeka or Squarespace and websites like that. And then the last thing I want to mention, but not least, is the December Weeksville weekend is the last Weeksville weekend that we have of the year. It is the Kwanzaa Fest. There are a lot of things that are going to be happening that will be amazing. Please check it out. Um, I go every year, and not because I work there, but there is like a huge market festival. There will be a lot of programming that is happening, and this will be like a really good program just to end a year for everyone and Weeksville in general. So those are the events. I shared the link in the chat. Um, so please, yeah, please attend. And I paused because I was looking at a question from Modupe, which is could the genealogy event next week also apply to immigrant families? Yes, absolutely. We should be having a live demo, and the person that we expect to work with is a student of ours, a student that was part of our Building on a Legacy project. She is from Grenada, and Jermaine Dennis, he's an African American. He will show, well, he's of Jamaican descent. So he will show like how African Americans can do research, and those of the diaspora. So it's a strong focus on people from the diaspora and how to overcome any barriers when you're trying to do this research. He's worked with me personally. I am Haitian American, and like I was always under the impression that I could never really um, get a lot of information, and he proved me wrong. So yes, please come through next week. Sign up. It'll be a really great event and a really great way to um, not focus, but meditate on family at a time where we won't get to see as many in a year, which you really wish you could, right? And I think that's it. Again, I'd like to thank the Mellon Foundation for funding this. I would like to thank Sola for taking up the time and sharing his knowledge and expertise on this type of work. And I would like to thank everyone that came out to this program. It was really great. And we're really happy to see all the questions that you had. And we really hope that you come out to Weeksville again. Um, and just, spare time with that. So thank you. So Sola, do you have any final words?
No, I mean, thanks guys for tuning in. I was just reading the chat. Yeah, I appreciate the kind words.
Yeah. I mean, so at this moment, um, I will stop the recording because we'll be done, and we'll look at any more questions in the chat that we want to go through. But again, thank you everyone, and have a good night. So I'm going to stop the recording. It is done. And it is still live on YouTube though. So I'm going to